I'm Dr. Allison Alford, and I want to talk to you today about understanding your conflict resolution style. So, you have taken the conflict inventory from the Canvas modules, and now it's time to talk about the 5 styles. Okay, and as a reminder, that was from the Thomas Kilman and sort of a hybrid with the Cray bill. And we're going to go over that a little bit more today so we can understand ourselves and our own conflict style, as well as the styles that our conflict interaction partners are also using. Conflict is everywhere and it impacts everyone. So you can't escape it, and therefore you have to deal with it. A lot of times we like to think that not confronting conflict or thinking about it or talking about it means that it went away. But it didn't go away. We might internalize those emotions and then have that conflict boil back to the surface. But if we want to get ahead and stay ahead in business, we need to learn to deal with and manage conflict and conflict resolution. So, as we proceed through the following slides, we'll be talking about the 5 conflict styles from the conflict inventory. So make sure that you've completed the inventory, and that's the questions with the responses range 1 through 5. And then there was a tally sheet. At the bottom of the tally sheet, after moving everything down, you should be able to see your calm styles and your storm styles. So calm is how you feel when a conflict is brand new, and storm is how you feel after a while, after it's starting to become a persistent problem. So you have that information in front of you, and you are also thinking about a particular work circumstance as we did that, and as you took that inventory. So keeping in mind what is the style of this other person. So as we go through the 5 conflict styles, you might want to jot down some information, not only about yourself, but about this other person as well that you interact with. Later, if you're interested, you can go back through the inventory and take it and think about your romantic partner or your parent or a best friend, and kind of get an idea of his or her conflict style and how you can better match that style for improved conflict resolution. So the 5 styles of conflict resolution begin is competing, and then we have avoiding, accommodating, compromising, and collaborating. So as an example, let's think about Carla and Ben. They're brother and sister, and they have each saved $1,500 to put toward a car. Their parents can add only enough money to buy 1 car, not 2. So Carla is in conflict with Ben over who should get that money. Here are the examples of 5 different approaches that Carla might take when engaging in this conflict. First, if she's competing, Carla tries to get her parents to give all of their money to her and none to her brother Ben. Avoiding, Carla doesn't bring up the conflict, hoping that her parents will figure out a way to resolve it. And who knows how long it takes to get that car. Third one, accommodating. Carla encourages her parents to go ahead and give the saved up money to Ben instead of her. What a martyr. And then is compromising. Carla suggests that she and Ben pool their money with their parents' money and buy 1 car, and they have to share it. So they'll get a car, but neither of them gets to have the car that they each wanted or as often as they wanted, because they're going to continue to probably have conflict over who gets to use the car. Okay, and then collaborating. Carla works with Ben and their parents to try to figure out how she and Ben can each get a car. Whoa, Carla, what's happening here? You're saying that all the chips may not be on the table, or that you might be able to brainstorm something else that hasn't been thought of? Very interesting. Here, in collaborating, Carla is trying to take a totally different approach to conflict resolution to see what else might be available by brainstorming. This won't be quick, it won't be fast, and it may be that nobody wants to help Carla engage in these difficult conversations. And so, not trying to say that it's perfect. to collaborate, but certainly it seems ideal to try to get everybody the most of what they want. Let's look at the first one, competing. I do what I have to do to get what. Competing people may often create verbal attacks, use personal criticisms, and sometimes even have a pattern of threats and violence, because for a competitor, it's all about winning. And winning means that the competitor, the person, gets 100% and their conflict partner or opponent gets 0. Okay, makes it a zero-sum game, and the competitor wants to take everything. What do competitors need? Well, they need to be task-oriented. They're direct and frank, and they want someone to be that way with them. Competitors want to move quickly and feel in control. So maybe you're reading this and thinking, that's me. And it's great self-awareness. That's important to be reading through these and think which one's you. What's also important to recognize is what it might be like to interact with somebody who isn't like this, or what is it like to interact when two competitors are having a conflict together. Okay, let's look at the next. Avoiding. Avoiding, that person says, I hope this problem will just go away. Avoider is going to cling to denial. Nothing's happening. I don't see anything here. And avoiders then may have to wait a long time for something to happen, because avoiders are not going to make something happen. Avoiders try to change the topic, maybe distracting with jokes, and avoiders prefer to deal in data instead of emotion, and they don't want to be pushed too hard or they could explode. Be aware of that. So the goal of the avoider is to completely act like conflict doesn't exist. But what happens instead of conflict not existing? Although it may not exist for the avoider, it still exists for the other person, and the avoider may have a long-term impact from the emotions of that conflict not being expressed, and that could impact his or her well-being and result in an explosion later, which probably will not help resolve that conflict in a constructive way. Accommodating. Accommodating is when somebody says, I can minimize differences so that I can maintain harmony. Accommodators, all right, I'll do it. Okay, yes, I will take care of everything. Accommodators do what the other person wants to do in order to avoid arguing. So it's basically giving in. And accommodators want and need to please others. So when you're dealing with an accommodator, sometimes it's just best to let them do what they want to do what they need to do, which is to please others, or to acknowledge that you're pleased. The idea behind an accommodator is they really don't like to upset someone else or to bother someone. Whereas, of course, a competitor almost thrives on that same exact feeling. And accommodators will always suggest that nothing is really a big deal. Compromiser. A compromiser says, well, if we each give something, we each get something. Compromising is what you've heard about your whole life. Maybe you were told with your sibling, let's compromise, or let's see if we can come to a compromise. And often in negotiations, we find ourselves compromising, that we have to give something up in order to get something, so that both people walk away with a little bit of something. May say, I'll do this if you'll do that. They want you to meet halfway, and they want to make sure that while there's an agreement, they would like to hopefully have more of a win than a loss for themselves. So they want it to be more win for me and a little bit of loss for me and a win for you. But I don't want to be less than 50-50. Okay, what do compromisers need? Compromisers need someone who will look at trading and have a mentality for negotiation. Compromisers will often copy your style, because in order to get you to agree to something or to negotiate, they're going to mimic what you do in order to get you to like them. Okay. Next is collaborating. A collaborator says, let's work together to solve this issue. Show concern for others and what the other person needs or wants. They think about what we are going to do about this instead of I want this, I must have this. And collaborators try to create a win-win situation rather than a compromise where it's a zero-sum game and you have, uh, you know, 70-30, 60-40, 50-50 in the split. The collaborator is going to try to get both parties to 100. And that's through thinking outside the box, listening, gathering more information, and trying to think of alternative ways to solve conflicts. Collaborators need and want to talk, which does take a lot of time. Collaborating can and will take more time, energy, and effort than other conflict resolution methods because there's more brainstorming and decision making and agreeing in order to um, try to find this 100 for you and 100 for me. So unfortunately, collaborators may try too hard to make everybody happy, and that can lead to a protracted conflict. Oh, all right, so now let's evaluate these styles and the impact of these. In graphic form, you can see here that we have concern for others and cooperativeness on the x-axis and concern for self and assertiveness on the y. And what we get here is you can kind of see along the bottom that avoiding is going to be low on concern for others and low on concern for self. So that would be low or small on cooperativeness and assertiveness. So basically no cooperation with others, but also nothing for oneself. So an avoider who tries to get outside of conflict ultimately hurts others and hurts him or herself. Someone who's competing has very high concern for his or himself or herself, but low concern for others. An accommodator, of course, is thinking way too much about others and has no concern for self. Compromisers in the middle have some concern for self and some concern for others. Now, a lot of people look at this and think, aha, I see the dot in the middle. That's the compromising. That's the ideal right there. But no, if we think about the way that a graph works, we want to have to see both the x and the y grow, and therefore the ideal scenario for conflict resolution is actually collaborating, where we have a high concern for self and a high concern for others. So maybe you see yourself on this list and you're thinking of your style and you're noticing where that might fall. And maybe you're even surprised by thinking about what using that style means about how you impact others, whether you're showing concern for others or how it impacts you, and what that means for your well-being if you're showing low concern for yourself. So consider some of these things. You know, what did you see there? What did you gather from that chart? If you need to, pause this video and go back a little bit and look at your style, look at your different styles from the calm and the storm, and think about how far away your style is currently, your most relied upon style. How far away is that from collaborator? What do you need to do to get to be a little bit closer to becoming a collaborator? If there is an ideal choice, what is the ideal choice? What is your default style? What is your conflict partner's default style? And how can we move along with our partner, and partner in this case means the other person in the conflict, towards this ideal conflict resolution scenario? How can we urge others to do that? And that's why, again, you may want to go back and look at the things that said, what does this style need? Okay, because when we give others what they need based on the style that they're exhibiting, we're more likely to be able to draw out collaborative strategies. Okay, so let's look at the graph again, but this time instead of just little dots, let's think about if each of these styles was represented by an animal. What animal would you be? So what do we think that competitor will be? The collaborator, the compromiser, accommodator, avoider. Now, if you've seen the conflict inventory and you looked at the last page, you've already seen these on the graph. Okay, so the competitor is the shark, the avoider is the turtle, the compromiser is the wily fox, the accommodator is the teddy bear, and lastly, we have the collaborative owl. So the question is, what kind of animal are you in the workplace? And what do you think is the wisest way to resolve conflict? So again, take a look at this, pause the video if necessary, and think to yourself, what animal am I behaving like? And what do I want to be like? What is the best way to move my team toward conflict resolution? And sometimes that means more work for you, right? At the beginning. But if you can resolve some of these long-standing disagreements, issues, problems, or the ways that you manage and deal with these things in the workplace, you're going to find things get a lot easier and you save a lot of time later. More than that, you'll have better well-being and hopefully your team will also be able to continue to succeed. Okay, so now it's time for you to look back at the Canvas module, check out the homework, check out the coaching assignment, and of course, if you have any questions, and we can go over any individual scenarios, conflict scenarios. So one of the best things that I like to do is talk about a specific conflict that you're experiencing in the workplace, learn more about this other person or people, and then break down exactly what you can do very specifically on a day-to-day basis to make this better, okay? So feel free to contact me and we can go over some of those things together. You can find my email. You can email me, DrAllisonAlford@gmail.com, or you can look for my website, goodtalkconsulting.com. Thanks so much. Have a great day. And